Hello and welcome to the web series of RE Talks with Amit Vats. Today, I have with me a young entrepreneur who's passionate towards sustainability. I welcome Ms. Shriti Pandey, founder Strawcture Eco. Welcome, Shriti.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much.
Shriti, what tempted you to come back to India and start your entrepreneurial debut with Strawcture Eco?
It was not immediately coming back to India and starting structure for me. So I actually just moved to India for a year in 2016 to do a rural fellowship. And when I went to the rural part of the India, which, a lot of people of my age are not exposed to, you're born in cities, tier one, tier two, is where I really realized that how much it matters to be sustainable, whether in terms of energy, construction, because when you have limited resources, you cannot waste them. So that kind of became the inspiration to start structure for me. So didn't plan, but it just happened and I'm glad it did. So that was initial experience for me to see stubble burning happening in India in a village. So it was not on a news channel during Diwali, but actually right in front of me, the farmers I lived with, instead, putting a matchstick. And that's what bothered me, that if they can so easily do it, knowing that it harms their own productivity and land, there has to be something fundamental that's pushing them to do so. And what could then help them not to? So that led to starting structure right after the fellowship in 2018.
Great. So was there a link, what you were doing overseas and when you came to India, as you said, you were part of the fellowship. So there was a link towards it, right?
Yes, so my background is in construction, and so that I had, and then the rural experience brought me close to the problem that we're right now addressing at structure. So then my knowledge skill set, the problem led to the solution, which is the building material we manufacture. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks for the share. So, could you throw some light on the activities and the programs led by your organization and how that is helping the Indian economy?
Sure. So structure, as we like to call it, it's a building material company. So we manufacture building material. That's one aspect of our work. Second is we also provide installation and construction services with that material, because there's a bit of an upskilling that needs to be done of the mason and the carpenter for the initial few years, which we have done in last three. And then, they can go around and use this material very well, like they use a ply or a brick to build anything out of it. So it's manufacturing and the installation design service. We take care of all three. So we have architect, designer, structural engineers, 5 to 6 in-house carpenters, and then the manufacturing workers in the factory, in the company. And that's what we do. The way we see it, we sit at a very interesting intersection of agriculture and construction as an industry. Our raw material is completely dependent on agriculture. So, only when you grow paddy, wheat, sugarcane, the waste becomes our raw material. And then it has a value to the construction sector where it's a value added product. And again, these are two industries in India, like agriculture, we all know the whole economy depends on it. Maximum, employer, maximum, entrepreneurs are there who themselves do farming. But then construction is the biggest employer when it comes
Sure.
to skilled workforce. So I feel we are affecting two big industries in the Indian economy by, one as a raw material, one as a forward product that we make.
Right. So, have the policies been favorable to your activities? What would you suggest if you have to, to the policymakers in India, if you have to suggest something?
Definitely. So when we started out in 2018, the first incentive that we saw was with the GST.
Mm.
So for instance, most of the building materials have an 18% GST or 28%. Our bio panels have a 12% GST, which is because it is made of a green material. So definitely there's a support there
Great.
policy wise. And secondly, what we have noticed, so last year, like Niti Aayog with CII came up with a core committee that is working very closely to the PMO office on XC2 management of crop stubble, where they give voices to people like me and other people who are using straw for biofuel or converting it into pellets, like a clean fuel, so but materials and energy. So I've definitely seen government being more aware in last 3 years in India and wanting to push the solution. They themselves asked us, what can they do for the supply chain? How smoothly can they, to businesses like us, provide the straw as a service? And where can they support the farmers to provide that? So definitely, I've seen positives that are there. And thirdly, the construction industry itself. So the Ministry of Housing and Affairs in 2019 March came up with a challenge called alternative building construction technologies. And they have gone out to say that around 20 companies, which includes one of ours, who are using materials that are sustainable, modular, and faster build, are pushing them to be used now in government, state, and center tenders. So if you're doing like an infrastructure project at a large scale, if you're a young company like ours, which earlier would not get an option to go tender, now they are telling us that you don't have to worry about the financial qualification. If you have a new alternative technology, you're invited to bid, and you can partner with a traditional general contractor and bid and promote this technology for projects. So I've definitely seen at the GST level, the back end, straw, and definitely in the construction industry as well, government being more supportive in the policy.
No, that's nice. We need to have the support of the government to actually promote these
Definitely,
technologies.
definitely,
We're all working towards sustainable right now. Great.
right.
So, Shruti, may I ask that, because you've been talking about what exactly is the organization all about and how it can help. So let's talk about a case scenario whereby an individual
Mhm.
or an organization have benefited with Structure Eco.
Sure. So this was last year in October. So we were approached by one of our long-term partners, Selco Foundation, and the government of Bihar. So right now by the government there's a mandate to build a childcare center in different parts. So every village should have a childcare center, or Anganwadi, which is called. And so they reached out to us asking, can you build an Anganwadi that is portable and dismantleable? Because these Anganwadis had to be built in districts like Muzaffarpur, which is flood prone in
Mm-hmm.
Bihar. So the government was, actively looking for a new solution and willing to promote that. So then, along with Salco Foundation, this year in January, we built a model childcare center in a village in Muzaffarpur. And then, of course, things got worse with COVID. But after that, we've been approached by the Child Development Ministry to pitch to build this childcare center in different districts in Bihar, wherever it's flood prone. So that there's no, because you're using taxpayers' money to build a
Right.
childcare center. If it's for 8 and 9 lakhs, you've built it. You don't want it to in 2 years in the next monsoon just be destroyed. So here you can put, you can dismantle, make it into a shelter during flood season, and then when that's over, you can get it back into being a childcare center. So then the building space becomes more functional and long lasting, and the investment of the money also makes more sense. So that is something we are trying to do with the government in Bihar right now.
So, Shruti, a question just popped up. So, is there a life cycle to your structure, or no? Do you have a life cycle or a period of how long can the structure sustain for?
Yes. So usually when we build the complete structure, so there are two components to it. So your traditional building has brick and concrete. In our case, it is these panels versus brick. And instead of concrete, we use light gauge steel frame as a support system. So we have done testing on the panel part of it, accelerated life testing, fire, moisture, termite. All of these tests have been done, and the panel has a life of 60 to 70 years in
Oh,
external exposed conditions. So if you put it on your external wall, or make a door out of it, or the whole building with steel, it will last you for that long. Yeah.
all right, all right. So, Shruti, have there been any subsidies attached to it by the government? Does an individual get any subsidies if they have to go for such structures?
So right now there are no subsidies, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to create an ecosystem again with Selco and few more, microfinance institutions, and see if the PMAY Yojana, which is a
Mm-hmm.
Pradhan Mantri Awas
Mm-hmm.
Yojana, so the current subsidy that is given to a person in a rural India or in urban cities to build their home, is it? So we are trying to see, because as I said, we are approved by the government to build using this technology. So can a farm, can a marginal, family avail that same subsidy for building with this technology versus the traditional space? Because then it's easier to scale up and go and say, we can do mass housing at a scale and build 100, 200 homes of this kind. So we are working and seeing how we can avail, just get that subsidy to include this as well as the build technology, then the regular brick mortar construction.
So, is there a cost difference into construction of a modular house or a structure as what you do, or into a normal one which people make from brick or mortars?
Yeah, so at a scale, so by which I mean, like, let's say in the same geography, in the same, site, if you're doing, let's say, 15 or 20 of these 300 square feet
Mm.
homes, there's easily a 15 to 20% cost difference that you achieve. And also, it takes less than half the time to build. So that childcare center that I talked about, it was 550 square feet, and we built it in 2 weeks with proper painting, plaster, TV, solar, everything installed in less than 2 weeks. Mm.
That and at the end of the day, it's eco-friendly as well. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
really,
yes.
really makes
So this
sense.
is what and that is why we work, with our partners like Salco, because like you're talking about renewable energy, and I believe that like the build space and the energy, those are two very interconnected industries. Because if you want solar to be installed, it has to be on a building, it has to be an infrastructure. We don't have
Right.
so much solar parks, free space available. So if we could make both of those clean, the
Mm.
material as well as the energy, then in the long run you're seeing a lot of cost offset in terms of not only your operational energy but also embodied energy because of the sustainable material that goes in.
Right, makes sense, Shruti. So, Shruti, another very important question which comes into my mind is that how are you managing your manpower requirements, and what are the skill sets required in the start of your work? Are there any skilling opportunities which you provide to people?
So in our case, as I said, so one is the blue collar workforce where we work with a lot of carpenters. So some of them are our own in-house full-time employees. And then every time we take up installations for the customers, then we hire a lot of carpenters on job to work with us. So there is a bit of an upskilling that needs to be done, but that's done on site. But going forward in 2 to 3 months, we are planning to come up with a small training course around this material. Similarly, how 10 years back when gypsum and plasterboard was introduced in India, a decade a little more before, to have a proper training course and then partner with government skilling institute or private institute and have that also as one of the course. So if you're a carpenter learning to work with wood, you also learn to work with this panel besides ply. So then you're already part of the ecosystem and we can just, offer that job to that carpenter or that contractor. And because in the long run to scale up, we definitely want to have a decentralized channel partners. So, reaching out to people who exist already in the system, skill them for this so that they can have more work with this new material as well.
So, where are you sourcing the material from, Shruti?
So we do local manufacturing in India. So right now we
Hmm.
are manufacturing these panels in Maharashtra, and going forward next year we'll be setting up another factory either in UP or Punjab,
Okay.
which uses paddy waste and sugarcane base. Yeah.
So you can have a direct tie-up with the farmers as well. They can send the
Yeah, yeah,
paddy
that's
directly to
true.
your facilities, right?
Yeah, so that's the plan to partner with like multiple farmers or an FPO that has a network of farmers and directly source the straw from them. Yeah.
Mm. I
So
recall
the
that,
factory is
I
very close.
okay,
The factory is very, so in our case the factory has to be very close to where the agriculture belt is, like it's less than 50 kilometers. So our factories are not in industrial areas, but they're
okay.
actually where the village or the agri belt is.
Very so they're approachable at the end of the day.
Yes.
People don't have to travel distances to
No,
take their
no,
produce. Yeah,
no,
rather
no.
their waste, which could be reused.
Yes.